Welcome to Talk.
All things anodizing.
Wow. It's been a moment since we've last done this, huh, Tage?
I know. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah, it's good though. You know what we're preparing for up here?
Another 8 weeks of winter.
Well, storm of the century.
Oh, wow. Based on how this winter's gone in Chicago, I'll believe it when I see it.
They're talking, Tage, they're talking 20 inches. What do you think of that?
I don't, if you have to, I'll believe it when I see it. I think they've made the weather dramatic, like a soap opera now. It's like what used to be winter. Now people are panicking about.
All right, fair enough. You know, our guest today, I'll yield to their input on this rumored storm of the century. All right, we'll get there because I think they're lifers up here and some of us transplants. So there we go. Let's introduce our audience to Kyle and Peter Schumer from Sequel Anodizing Racks. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us on. It's awesome to be on here.
Well, we appreciate you all taking the time to talk to us about anodizing racks. I assume that's kind of critical in our process, don't you think?
It's very critical in the process. It's essential. It's essential, some would say.
All right. Well, before we get to that essentiality, let's get to know you and Kyle. And if you wouldn't mind, let's first question. Have you guys? Here's a softball. Y'all been from Minnesota all your life?
Yeah, we both grew up here in Minnesota. So in regards to that 30 inches, I'm kind of with Tage. We'll see it when it happens. I'll believe it. As soon as it happens, I'll believe it.
Okay. All right. And if it doesn't happen, good for us, right?
Exactly.
All right. So you both graduated from St. John's, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Where's that? Where's St. John's?
It's just north of the city. It's kind of by St. Cloud, technically in St. Joe, Collegeville, Minnesota.
Okay. All right. What y'all graduate with from St. John's?
I graduated with a degree in communication.
And I was a global business major.
Okay. All right. So this communication, I mean, podcast, Kyle, or that's a no-brainer for you, right?
Yeah, it should be right up my expertise for sure.
Well, we look forward to your feedback after you get through this podcast with us. So when you were up at St. John's, do you guys participate in any extracurriculars, whether it's boxing, fencing, hockey? Hockey's a good one.
Yeah, so we both were on the soccer team up at St. John's for a few years, and we were both involved in various clubs. I liked ski and snowboard club, so I did that quite a bit. And that was a really fun activity to do with all the snow we get up here in Minnesota.
Sure. Where do you go for the hill?
There's this local hill called Powder Ridge that's right near St. Cloud. Otherwise, the main goal of Ski and Snowboard Club was to make a yearly trip out west. So we went to Jackson Hole one year and then Big Sky, Montana the other.
Oh, okay. And you walked away from each adventure, right? No limbs broken?
Yep, I walked away from each one, knock on wood. Nothing bad's happened yet, so it's still a good hobby to have.
All right. Kyle, what about yourself?
Yeah, I did a lot of intramural sports, took those as a washed up athlete pretty seriously. So that was always fun. A lot of dodgeball, basketball, flag football, which is always fun. Great way to meet other, washed up athletes and get a little competitive edge in you.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Have you guys tried this new sport that everyone's talking about, pickleball?
Oh yeah, I love pickleball. It's the best.
Really?
You don't have to move that much. It's very fun.
Wow. Tage, what about you, man?
Oh yeah, I do pickleball. I played tennis in high school, so for what it's worth, it doesn't necessarily translate as much as you think it would. But yeah, no, I play it up here. It's great. You can play it outside, and then at least the way we play, we have a mandatory post-match beer session. So it makes pickleball that much more easier to jump on the bandwagon with.
Yeah, and they're building a new club out this way. So all the cool kids will be doing it. Sounds like they are already. Better get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right,
What
I got a
do you
few
have?
questions. I got a few questions here.
Okay.
How did you guys go from being intramural stars at St. John's into the industry you're in right now? Because that's always right. That's the question, right? How did that whole thing play out?
Well, so after school, I graduated from St. John's in 2016 and took a job brokering freight for Coyote Logistics. So that was kind of first job out of school. Really got to learn how to run my own book of business, as they would call it. So I started from having 0 customers and doing that grind. Did that for about 3.5 years. Right before COVID, then I moved over to food ingredient sales, which turned out to be a nightmare because everyone's working from home and no one wants to mess up their supply chain. So
Yeah.
that was a fun experience, making a bunch of cold calls, and I perfected a voicemail. So I've got that down. And then worked for a family company at Crown Extrusions after that for a while, and then ended up here at Sequel Anodizing Racks.
Cool.
Yeah, and I graduated in 2018. Got into tech right away. So started at a bigger company called Infor, and then moved over to a smaller at the time cybersecurity company called Arctic Wolf. So I was doing sales over there, banging the phones pretty hard, and then got the opportunity to come work here. And it's been a great chance to get to know the industry, an industry that's underrated in a lot of ways.
So it's interesting. And the reason I asked that question is unlike Mark, who's been a veteran to the industry, individuals of our level of gray hair haven't obviously been in it as long enough. And for you guys, clearly you have no gray hair, which is amazing. But I know from my previous background in management consulting and even when I worked a corporate job, there were certain things that translated pretty well into kind of the metal finishing industry, the manufacturing industry, some things that didn't necessarily translate well. So I'm familiar with Coyote. I actually did some work with Infor. So from your guys' perspective in that transition, what was like, oh yeah, this is just like what I was doing before versus, oh my gosh, this is 180 degrees different in terms of what past experiences you had and what you're doing now?
I think for me, one thing that was very similar is you're servicing a customer.
Yeah.
And that's the most important part, is making sure that the customer gets what they want, versus trying to force a sale down someone's throat that, it's not going to be good for anyone. So that's what I learned. It's really catering to the customer, versus trying to cater for what I want to do.
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, here at Sequel, it's very customer centric. So we're looking to find the right racking solution. That with that comes a lot of consultation, a lot of collaboration. And through my past experiences with just hitting the phones, calling random people, you get to learn how to communicate better. And you can kind of translate into that into more of a customer facing role, which is good.
Interesting. So in terms of both your guys' role at Sequel, are you guys in a similar role, or what are your functions within the company?
I would say it's pretty similar right now. Being that we're pretty small, we wear a lot of different hats. So one day we could be talking to a bunch of customers, the other day dealing with raw material orders. So it kind of varies day to day.
Sure.
But I would say we both handled the majority of the day-to-day responsibilities together in tandem.
Got it. I know. Yeah. I mean, I'm a small family business too, so I can appreciate that. It's never the same routine, which is a good thing in some ways. Mark, I see you taking notes diligently. What questions do you have for the guys?
So I thought what Kyle said was interesting about an industry that's underrated. So I think you're talking about the anodizing industry in itself.
Oh, definitely.
So as you're newcomers to this, because you both have been involved with the business for how long now?
Since May of 2021 is when we got in here.
Oh, okay. So that's why Tage, no gray hairs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? but that was an interesting comment. What leads you to say that as an industry it's underrated?
Yeah, it's funny when I tell my friends or anyone that asks what I do for a living, and I tell them that I basically work in the anodizing industry, or we supply metal for the anodizing industry. Nobody really knows, but once you explain it to them, it's everywhere. So it's kind of funny how prevalent it is.
There's truth to that. Who grows up thinking I'm going to be an anodizer?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
but it's quite an industry. And then once it's like the extrusion industry as well. Once you get it in your blood, you stay in it. So, have you attended any AAC events?
We've been twice. So the first year was in 2021, I think, and then we went last year as well. Nashville and then Kansas City, I believe, were the two locations.
So you went back.
Yep, we did.
All right, that's good. What's your viewpoint of those events?
Well, for us being new into the industry, it was great to kind of see how things work, try and meet more people, and basically just get our feet wet. We're hoping to get more and more involved as we go forward, but it's been a good learning experience and helped us learn quicker, basically, by attending those meetings.
Mm-hmm. How about networking? Anything from a networking standpoint?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just with the foot traffic you get, we had a table at last year's show, 2022's show. So that was good to see people walking around. It gave us a chance to meet some customers that we might not have otherwise met in person. So it kind of bridges the gap communication even more, which is kind of our goal.
Mm-hmm. Sure. What do you find is your most effective way of promoting your business?
I think the most effective way for promoting our business is just getting out there and seeing the people. Like at the AAC event, it's a great opportunity for us to see all the people that we sell to or could potentially sell to. Because a lot of the anodizers that we work with, they're a lot of project-based job shops, so they're not necessarily ordering, thousands of racks or clips at one time. It's very job specific, so it's just a matter of making sure our name is at the top of their call list when they need us.
That's important. Do you do anything else? Well, we'll get into that question in the next segment. So end of the day, you've had your full share of anodizing. Maybe sometimes chemicals don't go right. Sometimes racks don't go right. It's been a day. What do you do to unwind? What do you do to relax? When there's
when there's no snow on the ground, I like to golf. So that's kind of my relaxation area.
There you go.
And me, I like to hop on my road bike and get some pedaling in after work. So that's what I like to do.
Ooh, a Peloton.
Not the Peloton. I need to be moving versus sitting in a basement. So I like to catch the scenery, and I'm kind of stop, get a beer halfway through the ride, and
There you go. Yeah. See,
mid-ride motivation.
That's right. You got the wind blowing through the long hair.
Yeah.
Hair shoulder length there, and so
it used to be at one point, but now I got a aerodynamic keep it tucked in the helmet. So
that's good though. Getting outside and golfing too. Although we got to take advantage of the July 4th weekend. Otherwise, we're got the threat of snow, don't we, up here? Or it's not that bad.
Pretty much, it seems like.
Do you set a certain degree of temperature when you'll go out and hit the ball?
It's got to be probably over 50 degrees. So I'll maybe grind it out if it's 45 degrees, but it all depends on the wind and the motivation of the day.
Okay. I lived in Georgia for a while, and it was just like, 50 degrees. We didn't go out, but up here, I think we go out at 30. So I don't know, but anyway, okay. Anything else, Tage?
Yeah, so obviously you guys have been, you mentioned some of the surprises that you had in the industry. What was kind of the, in the 2 to 3 years you've been involved so far, what have you seen that really shocked you in a good way and shocked you in a bad way? Like I always like to get the perspectives of individuals who've not been in the industry to kind of get, because I say stuff and sometimes I'm in a room of people who've been in anodizing for half a lifetime and they look at me like I have two heads. So this is a chance for me to talk to a group of people who may share my shared frustration in certain aspects of the industry or not. So
yeah, I found that it's a lot more smaller and tight knit than I had originally expected. A lot of people have been in it obviously for decades, some people, and you get to know a lot of different people. A lot of it's connection based is what we kind of found out as well. So that was kind of a surprise. But coming from the extrusion side or knowing a little bit more about the extrusion side, I guess it kind of works in tandem with that, where it's also the same type of business where you're in it for a career, and you get to know a lot of people through that career.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same boat as Kyle there. I think one thing that shocked me was how much knowledge there is in the industry, where once you're in it because people love to do it, and it's just getting used to, starting where you're starting and not trying to compare yourself to like myself versus Mark, who's been in it, or you, Tage, just
Sure.
slowly gaining our notches in our belts with our experience over time.
Cool. That covers my list, Mark, that I got here. Now the next session we do with these guys is going to be the Budweiser hot seat. So I don't want to let them get too cocky here with how easy these questions were.
Gotcha. Hey, I do have one last one. What are y'all reading? You take time at the end of the day if you're not riding or hitting the golf ball. You reading anything good you want to share with our listeners?
Full transparency, I'm not the biggest reader. I like to read the news, but that's about it.
Okay.
Me, I was working on the Phil Knight Shoe Dog book about Nike. So I just started that one, and it's pretty good so far. So I'd recommend that one if anyone hasn't read that so far.
There we go. Thanks. All right. Well, gentlemen, we appreciate your time today. Pete or Peter?
Peter is what I prefer.
There we go. Okay. Well, Kyle and Peter, thank you for that. And we'll talk to you in our next segment where we'll learn more about you and sequel anodizing racks.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another podcast of Ano Talk. All
things anodizing.
There we go. Welcome back to Ano Talk.
All things anodizing.
There's a lot of life there.
It is.
Yeah.
I got a case of the Mondays, Mark. I got a case of the Mondays.
It sounds like it, man.
It is. It's this, I think it's called seasonal anxiety disorder. SAD is what it's called. It's just gray skies. I have to deal with the winter some more. You know all about that in Minnesota though, right?
Nope. Nothing but sunny days, my friend.
Oh, really?
Sunny days. And when it's sunny, it's cold outside.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no clouds to keep the heat inside, right?
Exactly.
What a really interesting segment we have today. Don't you think, Tage?
It is. It's a good chance as a supplier to this industry to have another supplier on the industry that I could blame things that go wrong on. So it's going to be great to have the next guest on here, because now instead of chemistry being the problem for an anodizer, we can make a whole nother set of excuses up.
Oh, so what you're saying is it's got to be the racks.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. All right. Well, let's not delay. To our listening audience, we wish Dr. O well. He couldn't be with us today, so Dr. O, you're missed. Would you share that sentiment there, Tage?
I would. It's some things. It's not the two musketeers; it's the three musketeers. You know what I mean, Mark? So we'll push through it, though. I think
so. Today we will be meeting with Kyle and Peter Schumer of Sequel Anodizing Racks. So hello, Kyle. Hello, Peter.
Hello. Thanks for having us on.
We're looking forward to it. If it's as exciting as what it was to meet you all, this is going to be a great segment, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us today. So let's talk about aluminum racking. Tell us about your typical day. So you get in there, probably 9:30, leave at 3. Is that a day?
No, well, we kind of come in staggered. So I come in right around 7:30, stay till about 4:30, and Kyle's in about 8 to about 4:35. So we're here sun up to sundown, mostly taking orders, putting calls in, and trying to help everyone solve their racking issues.
Yep. That makes sense. What when you get a call, what are you getting? Emails, calls? What type of communication are you getting from the marketplace?
We're primarily, so people who kind of know what they're ordering and know what they want, we'll get emails from them, or if they are old school in the fact, they'll give us the call to put the order in that way. But we mostly are dealing with emails for customers that know what they want, and then phone call consultations when there are different racks that the customer might be interested in ordering. So that way either guide them in the right way or let them know that we need to go back to the drawing board.
How important is it to y'all that you understand the customer's tank sizes, or does that not matter at all?
It's relatively important. We're more concerned about the piece that's actually being racked, because then we can figure out, the proper solution. Tank size does matter, just so it kind of narrows down our options on, what rack to use or what disc to use, different techniques basically. But at the end of the day, it just matters to us what we know, what they're trying to rack basically.
Okay, and how do they share that with you?
So they either send over a drawing of it or send a picture. Then we can kind of ask for the dimensions and then figure out which rack would work best for it essentially.
Or more importantly, where we can and cannot put rack marks on the pieces is sometimes the challenge is the final customer, not the anodizer, but the final customer sometimes doesn't understand that the tiniest hole can't hold the 10-pound part into the tank. And next thing you know, no one's going to be happy with parts on the bottom of the tank. And it's he said, he, who did that? Who did why? So that's an important part of our process, is explaining that aspect of it.
So I have a question. I have a
Okay.
question, Mark.
Go
I got a
ahead.
question, Mark. And I don't know. I've seen this at certain anodizers where, and this is where I want to get your guys' take over at Sequel, Kyle and Peter. How many questions does a customer ask as it relates to designing their racking system? As an example, is aluminum more conductive than titanium? How much more conductive? If I'm going to run a load at 24 amps per square foot, how thick do the splines have to be? And the reason I asked this question is, and I hit on it a little bit earlier, is I have seen anodizers who undersize their titanium or their aluminum tooling or tooling in general, right? And then they don't get the coating they need, they don't get the color they need, and they have issues. And then they interpret those issues to be typically chemistry problems. How often do you get those questions? And the reason I ask that is, from my perspective, I think the customer may not be asking the right questions, so you kind of have to guide them. But I want to get your guys' take on that, because that's a big part of how successful you are with the tooling piece of things.
I would say we don't field that question very often, surprisingly, where you'd expect we would field it more. But a lot of times people have what they're looking for already picked out, and they're coming to us and saying, we want this because they've done it for so long, or the guy who's in head of tooling has done it that way through his career. So it's tough to teach an old dog new tricks.
Sure.
So, but I mean, we have that data we have most of that data, surface area and things like that. So if people ask for it, we do have it, but generally it's people know what they're looking for and get it, and that's it. And then they blame the chemical.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good to know. I mean, I guess the reason I asked that too is if you have that information, that's helpful, because I can also refer individuals who talk to me about, I didn't know aluminum was less more conductive than titanium, or I didn't know aluminum was more conductive in solution than out of solution. So there's a lot of things there that just the learning curve, especially for newer people in the industry. So now I at least have two people they can talk to if those questions arise.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important that a lot of that information is shared where, if there's issues, why not let us try to help solve them if our data will help.
And then another kind of question along the lines of racking, do you guys also, or do you get questions around the flight bar itself? Like, hey, is my flight bar the right size for the load that I'm trying to run in there? Or do most customers just focus on the aluminum racks instead of the other ancillary stuff like cathodes or the work bars?
Mostly just the racks instead of the
Okay.
cathodes and work bars.
Okay.
Although this is a good topic, because if your racks and the flight bar and then the racks that come off the flight bar, if they can't carry the energy, you're going to create heat. And then you're also going to create interference that your current's not going to flow evenly, and you won't build consistent anodic coatings.
Yep.
And that's a key to this industry. I've seen some racks where they just they burn where it comes off the flight bar because they were undersized, and you just get a lot of heat build up in that area. So That's interesting. Good question, Dave.
And then
What's the most, Greg?
one more, I got one more.
Yeah.
Looking at kind of what you guys offer, when I went to the website, it focused kind of more along the lines of aluminum tooling. Do you do any titanium tooling, or is more of your niche focus on the aluminum side?
We've kind of focused our niche on the aluminum side of things. We're slowly getting back into making some of our top selling clips into titanium again.
Okay.
That's kind of our goal for 2023 as we kind of work our way back into that market of titanium. But we've just, for the past 2 years, just done aluminum.
Got it.
What's your most unique part that you've been asked to design a rack for?
Our most unique part for me personally, I can show an example. We had a customer come in, or we went to a customer on site and noticed that they had an employee in the back, a skilled employee, chopping up these metal pieces. And we saw that and we're like, we can make that. I think you know Mark pretty well. It's this piece.
Oh, yeah.
So this is one of our more unique pieces, where it's not only was it a time saver for our customer, but also a OSHA safety saver for them in case their guy was losing a finger chopping it out. So it was a time saver for everyone involved, and no one lost a finger in the process.
True, from a safety standpoint.
Yeah.
Very much so. What's your biggest challenge in this industry?
I think the biggest challenge is narrowing down what the right racking solution is, only because we have catalog of 10,000 plus different combinations between discs, racks, spines. So the biggest challenge is just communicating and getting the right information from our customers in order to make the best decision possible for them when it comes to racking.
So Kyle, I know Peter had mentioned some of your orders are just kind of recurring orders, or the customer already knows what they want. In the event a customer doesn't really have any of that context, do you have like a questionnaire or something that you can at least help guide them through? Because I mean, I know in situations wherever I have to deal with an individual who's either never done anodizing or thinks they know what it's all about, there's obviously a learning curve there. So how do you guys deal with a customer like that who's not as educated maybe?
We just try and gather more information about the project, see, what it's about, get dimensions, and just bridge that gap of communication. That's kind of our whole strategy, is just open up the dialogue and use our resources that we have. We have a lot of employees here that have been in the industry working at Sequel for 15 plus, 20 plus years, and they all have vast knowledge about what might work and what might not work. So we kind of pool our knowledge together here, and then come back and have another conversation with the customer. So it's a back and forth conversation. We don't have a specific flyer or anything that we send out or questionnaire. It's just mostly conversationally based.
Okay.
How important is it to y'all to know to finish?
It's really not as important. I mean, it doesn't really come up as often as you would think.
Now that's a oh wow moment for me, just in that with racking, it's so critical if you're going to do some coloring. Let's say you're going to do some two-step, or you're going to do some dyeing. Maybe, what do you think, Tage? Even with organic dyeing, if we don't have them spaced properly, or if something is shielding the part from the cathodes?
In terms of, I mean, look, there's always a risk with any type of coloring to get uneven color, right? Whether it's, on the perimeter versus the middle. A lot of it depends on, how you're racking the parts and things like that. I guess from my perspective, for you, Peter and Kyle, do you find that certain applications are better to use aluminum tooling for than versus titanium? Because obviously the trade-off that every anodizer looks at is, oh, well, eventually if I strip my racks, I got to buy more aluminum. Whereas titanium, I have to worry about that. So how do you guys advise your customers on kind of saying, hey, look, this is a good time to use aluminum versus titanium?
They primarily just length of the project
Okay.
and type of anodizing they're doing. So if it's a long project and it's going to be consistent, it would make sense to do titanium, versus if it's a short, couple month project. Do you really want to invest in that titanium rack where you may not be able to get the full life use out of it that you expected, where aluminum we found is kind of that nice midpoint where you can get enough runs out of it, but you're not committing to the cost of titanium.
Aluminum's also easier to machine from what we've heard. So if they need to customize it on their own or change it to their own specific specifications, it's easier for them to do that basically in their shop.
We'll have some clips like this where the customers will take it themselves, and instead of having a whole custom clip made, they'll be able to bend it with the pliers and then rack their piece on it. Instead of with titanium, it's going to be harder to bend to
Sure.
make it fit just right.
And then from your guys' experience, do you find that a particular alloys really lends itself to, I assume 6,000, but do you find that there's a specific alloy that you prefer to use for your aluminum tooling?
We move a lot of 6061 and 6063. So the 6,000 series is what works best, is what we've seen.
Okay.
And then anything from 080 to 060 thickness, sometimes some 090 and 050.
So along those lines too, you had mentioned it's kind of convenient for customers. Do you guys also provide the welding material for racking as part of the product offering? Like if they want to weld two pieces of aluminum together?
We do not, no.
Okay. Because I know, the only reason I ask is I know there's two types and I don't know which one. One of them is better than another. Mark, you may know which welding alloy is better.
It's a 5,000 series. I believe
There
it's
you go.
256 versus
There you
2,000. So I think if we ask nicely, we might see a disc rack.
Yes.
We will pull up our disc rack tree here. So
Ooh.
this is just,
Look at that.
I don't know,
This is a first for our listeners. This is great. That's a disc rack.
Yeah.
So here's my question about shielding. Because if that disc rack is in the tank, right, Tage, and you got the cathodes going down on both sides of it.
Yep.
Are the parts on the outside of the disc going to have more reaction with the cathode than in the middle there?
Sure. So obviously anodizing is line of sight, right? So the parts that are closer to the cathode are going to build coating faster. There's always a risk for that. The ways to get around it, one way is to reduce your current density. That'll help you give you more even coating thickness. For clear anodize, it doesn't necessarily make as much of a difference. Right. The benefit of a rack like that is it's extremely efficient in terms of what you can put in on it and the load size, and it's conducive to. I assume you guys can raise it and lower it, right? For the
this is just like this is just a sample of all our different types. So with these, they use a disc collar on top, see here in between. So you'd have two that hold them into place, and these fingers would open. You can prime open and put your pieces in between.
Yeah. So to your point, Mark, it just depends on the application, but those types of racks I've seen are very popular, particularly in Europe. I've seen just because of how conducive they are to filling up a tank.
Do you all have a tool that you can use to pry open the finger? Because man, that really hurts right here to your fingers if you got to do some small parts.
We do not. These are themselves. These are just tightened down real tight so we could fit most of them on the tree. But usually you'd leave a bit of a gap before you're trying to really crank them open.
Yeah. Oh, all right. So that's you call that a disc rack?
Yep. These are a couple of different disc rack styles we have.
Now, why is that one flat?
It comes as a flat rack, and some of these fingers can be like, customers will buy it as a flat and then bend down a finger individually so it'll hold it that way.
Okay.
And typically from your guys' experience, how long, because obviously the knock is the more you strip and etch those fingers, eventually they'll get loose. What do you typically advise a customer to say, look, the life of that is 20 strip cycles, 30 strip cycles? I know it depends on some of the coating thickness and stuff, and is there one? Maybe there isn't.
It's really tough to quantify that because it seems like everyone gets a different time out of their disc. Some people, last 10, 15 times. Other people, they want a new one after 8 or 9. I always liken it to, it's like a marathon runner with tennis shoes, right? Some marathon runners get new shoes all the time, and other ones will run until there's a hole in the sole. So it's just kind of user dependent.
So Peter, you're a new shoe kind of guy, right?
I'm not a runner, so I'm not in the running shoe area. I'm a new shoe guy.
So that was a disc. What do you have another style of rack?
Do have one here. It's called more of a flat rack style. So this would be mounted, and then there would be another one that would go underneath it, hypothetically. And again, it pinches it in between. So instead of going top to bottom like the disc rack, it goes
Horizontally.
horizontally.
Okay.
Ah, okay.
And these
Yeah.
racks can also, so they can be on these cross members, and then we also see them on spines vertically.
Mhm.
So instead of this cross member here, it'll just be a spine, and it'd be like two back to back, and then you bend these fingers around to hold your piece with tension that way. So we have a whole bunch of different styles of these racks that can be used either horizontally to make like a box rack almost, or vertically to be paired back to back to use the fingers.
Mhm.
So with those rack setups, do you guys sell the finished rack, or will you send the pieces and your customer typically assembles it, or does it just depend?
We send the pieces typically.
Okay.
It's assembled by the customer.
Okay.
Do you offer any other products to the anodizing industry besides the racks we saw? We mentioned titanium a little bit. You're looking at that for this year. Anything else?
I think the only other thing that we sell outside of specific racking would be the polypropane floats, the floats that we have for the top of tanks. It helps keep
Oh.
heat in.
Yeah.
And we do sell some Dura clamps as well. But those, I guess, would be classified as racking, but not aluminum racking.
Well, if you offer it in the industry and you have customers that, maybe they didn't know, maybe they only thought that y'all did aluminum racks. So if you Dura clamps, you don't have one of those in your body, do you?
We do not have one up here.
Okay.
No.
We gotta bring we gotta bring the founder of DuraClamp on, Mark.
Yeah, okay, okay. So what information would you like provided to you to make your job easier to design a rack?
I think what's most important to us is knowing one where there can be rack marks, two, what kind of the timeline when they're expecting to get their racks to them helps us. Because it seems like most times where the racking people are always, we need them yesterday, which is, it happens. But yeah, so it's just one of those things. If we're included early on into the quoting and the sales cycle of the anodizers, we can make sure the racking's there when you need it versus we needed it yesterday type thing. So the earlier we're involved, the smoother things seem to go.
Has anyone ever sent you a plastic 3D printed part to say, here's instead of a print, but put it up on a plastic?
I don't think so, but that would be genius. That would help us out.
Wow, they're trying to put that in our budget over here. So I mean, that would help out, yeah. So anyway, because we were talking just a couple minutes earlier about, customers and, well, I'm giving you a hole to hang it. No, this isn't paint. This isn't plating, right? We need.
Right.
Why is it important? Why is it important to make good electrical contact, gentlemen?
So your coating gets done properly, and you're not going to have any bad spots or marks. And then when it's your pieces outside in the public, it's going to look pretty for a long time instead of looking rusty.
Amen. You don't get that correct, and it doesn't burn, right? Even though it's aluminum, right? And it isn't. If we don't have that good contact, it'll burn. And those aren't pretty. Not at all. Is it important that you all know the alloy of the part that you're going to be asked to build a rack for?
Not as much. That's another aspect that's probably a little surprising. They don't really fill us in on that part of it, that detail. They're more so just concerned about the stability of their piece and making sure that the thickness of what our alloy is correct, essentially.
That's a good question though, Mark. I know for example, I've had customers who will try to anodize castings with aluminum, and aluminum racking is great because it's super conductive. But when you're anodizing a casting, which is not super conductive, the racking takes all the anodized current away. So it's a situation where, to Kyle and Peter's question, if a customer told them they were using castings, that would be beneficial before they start sourcing tooling for it.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of comes back to the whole idea that we want to bridge that gap communication and get as much information as possible from our customer so that we can make more of an informed solution for them.
Yep.
That's important. So this has been a really enlightening conversation today. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Kyle. How can our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
They can reach out to us through our website, anidizingracks.com, or via my cell phone at 612-325-6665. I'd be happy to answer any and all questions. And yeah, thank you very much for having us on today. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and you both are on LinkedIn, I would assume?
Yep.
We're on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with us there, we're both on there as well.
Perfect. And then we can go into your onto your website and find you all as well?
You can submit an order form. So that would basically go to a general inbox, but our emails are our first name. So Kyle@anodizingracks.com and then Peter@anodizingracks.com.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Sage, anything else this glorious day?
No, I like the fact that your website address is like the most accurate way of describing what you do, because like 9 times out of 10 you get some like weird company name and it has nothing to do with anodizing, but it's like the most straightforward, easy to understand website and email address, which is perfect.
All right. Well, thank you again, Peter, and Kyle. Thank you for your time today. It's been very, very informative. And we also want to thank our listening audience for tuning in today to another podcast of Ano Talk.
All things
anodized.
There
Hey,
we go.
gentlemen, way to go.
There, yeah.
On that.
Can't coach Hart.
Yep, got it in us.